question that's in the chat about what are our relationships with our ancestral tribes. So I want to remind us that what we are doing, these are unlearning conversations. So what you've heard a lot from what Alan was just saying, that there's this division, this pitting Indigenous people against Indigenous people. Whether it comes to, do you know the language? Do you live on a reservation? Do you this, that, or the other? What are your relationships to your ancestral tribes? And so I'm gonna do a little unlearning here before. And so first, like we as 21st century urban Indians, because every one of us, lives in an urban environment, we have to do a lot of work on not judging each other by these colonial standards, because these were not Indigenous standards or modalities of like, well, how many relatives and how many grandparents do you have, and did you live there? Did you travel every year and live on that in the spring camp? Because if you didn't, you're no longer Indian, right? Alan's story. And so it is a very colonial question to say, what are your relationships first? And the use of ancestral. So like, we're all living, breathing people whose grandparents were living, breathing people. This is not a long, long ago story. This is a now. And I'm going to invite my co-facilitators and our guests to think about how we want to answer that question or not answer that question. Because answering that question in a certain way is falling into the colonial, well, I have to give you my credentials and I have to tell you my blood quantum and I have to tell you my connection. At the same point, as Aspen has said, and is why we're doing what we're doing, is to share these stories and to educate. So for me, this is one of those moments of really having to do some discernment and some thought of how much is sharing and educating and building community, and how much is checking off some boxes to fill those quotas, to make it acceptable that we are the people talking about these things, right? So if we're talking about that question, and I'm not saying, Pat, that you're asking that question in that way, but if we're saying